Good morning. Hey, folks. I am getting ready to rock and roll here. We have 4 people on the live stream. 7 people on the live stream. Check this out. We'll start with this. What is that? I know the beep is kind of weird sounding, but that is actually what we call the RPT, Repetitive Par Timer, on the Livefire app. So if you can see, I have 50 repetitions set up, maybe right over here. So that's done 5 out of 50 repetitions. The middle number is the reset time, right? And the other time over here, that's the par time, right? So basically, when I do my dry fire drills, I go to Livefire. And by the way, you can get this on the App Store. It's been available for a while. I'm associated with this company. They're great guys. They're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I go to the par timer, and I set up the par time on whatever I'm working on. So maybe I'm working on a draw and a transition. Draw, fire one, transition, fire, one more after the reload. I'll set up my par time. I'll set up the reset time because it may take me longer to reset, to work the slide or to holster back up. Or if I'm using magazines and I got to pick the magazines up off the floor. And then, of course, you can do your total repetitions. I say get your 50. This is set for 50 repetitions. Anyway, so that is the repetitive par timer on Livefire. Write that down. Livefire. Go to the App Store. Check it out. Go to Google Play. It's in both spots. So I think that's pretty awesome. So we'll show that again in just a second. Hey, good morning, folks. We are on live. Looks like we got a bunch of people on. I'm actually live on 3 different destinations. If you're watching me this morning, I am on the Shooting Performance page. I am on the IDPA page. And I'm pretty certain I'm live on my YouTube page. So if you are a YouTube watcher, follower, and you found me on YouTube or you're watching me on YouTube, thank you for checking me out on YouTube. We'll see. I'm going to check the broadcast later on and make sure it's good to go. My name is Mike Seeklander. Of course, welcome to our live stream on a Thursday morning. Last week we did Thursday morning as well, and there's a chance I may do Thursday mornings in the future simply because I have a class on Wednesday mornings, oftentimes at 7 a.m. So we're going to try Thursday morning and see how that works out for everybody. I know it's not hump day on Wednesday, which is a great morning sometimes. But we had a lot of people on. We had like 140 or 150 people on the live stream last time. And that was all because of you sharers, all of you coin members, all of you ACSS members, all of you that are doing one of my programs, or all of you that are just joining me on the live stream that have been doing this for years that maybe are not part of any of my programs, but for whatever reason, you like to jump on here and you hit that share button. And that's the key. And I appreciate that. So that's the first thing I want to say is, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you that jump on with me. I actually truly enjoy getting in front of a camera. When you're watching me, you're receiving some feedback, right, in terms of me and my face and my voice. I am actually just looking at a camera. I see your names and I see some of your comments, but I wish I could see some of your faces. Anyways, hey, good morning, folks. Do me a favor, if my video and audio is okay, and I see a bunch of you that are asking about the RPT that I just showed off, the repetitive par timer made by Livefire. A couple of you just asked. Just write this down and then do it. You can find it later. Livefire. It's an app on the Google Play and the App Store. It's been live for a long time. This app is about to do a new update. And by the way, if I stop that, just not to try to show this too much, and we'll get right into it. This is what the home screen looks like. There's Ernest Langdon. Of course, myself is on there as well. But you can also go in and use it as a logging function. So I know a bunch of my members are using it as a logbook function. So I can look at exactly what I did on those log days. So I can look at my Tuesday morning session, what I did, tried handgun or rifle, how many rounds I fired. So it's pretty darn impressive. You should check it out. Okay, let's get into this real quick. Of course, if you haven't clicked the share button, take a second, click the share button. Let people know we were live. I'd like to get 150 or so live viewers this morning. Today, we're talking about carry optic, right? We're talking about the draw process. We're talking about transitions. We're talking about developing speed in those areas. And I want to do a little bit of maybe myth busting in terms of transitions, because I see a lot of stuff out there on Instagram and on social media that may not be entirely true. Of course, As always, all safety rules apply. So if you're going to dry fire with me this morning, or if you're going to handle your firearm, number one, I need you to check and make sure you have no loaded firearms and no ammunition. I have an unloaded firearm. This is one of my Wilson Combat SIG 320 variants. I'll hold it up to the light. Beautiful gun, is it not, right? Upper and lower. If you notice, I put some skateboard tape on this sucker to make it even more aggressive. And then I do have a spare magazine, but if you notice, I have some orange tip dummy rounds. So do me a favor, if you would, if you have a firearm in your room or wherever you are right now, if you're going to be handling that firearm, please double check and make sure you have no live ammunition, number one. Number two, all safety rules apply. So the 4 primary safety rules apply. All guns are loaded, of course, muzzle direction, trigger finger direction, and backstop and beyond. So when I say backstop and beyond, you know, man, I'm talking fast. My coffee must be hitting me. I'm drinking some good stuff this morning. Anyways, if you're dry firing, you know, my kid's room is right here. One of my kids' rooms is right there. So if I'm going to dry fire, and let's say something stupid happened, I made the biggest mistake of my life and I fired a live round, I'm not going to dry fire in a direction where I might harm a family member. So pick a safe backstop if you're going to dry fire, something that would stop a bullet and not go into a room and harm someone else. Okay. Who do we have on this morning, man? Hey, if you're a coin member, throw your coin member up. Your coin member number, see who's on. Man, I got a bunch of coin members on already. Hey, Paul from Chicago. Mr. Will Montana's in the house, number 800. Tony's on. Good morning. Jason, how are you, Jason? David Garcia. The app's name is Livefire. If you didn't get that. Scott, number 1307 in beautiful Colorado. Good morning. Akeen, hey, good morning, sir. How are you? Tina, nice to have you on as well. David, good morning, sir. Ronald, hey. Brian, hey. Thank you for jumping on. Kevin is on. Scott Loomis is on. Good morning. Tim Heron is on. Man, one of my alumni, one of my shooting buddies, Tim Heron. That's freaking awesome. Avel Gonzalez. Sorry, man, I am messing up names this morning. That's not great at all. Jonathan is on. Good morning. Christian, good morning. How are you? And Vicky, good morning. Number 2186. Hello, Vicky. How are you? All right, folks. We're going to get into this. I want to talk about a little bit more about carry optics and finding your dot. So I kind of want to refresh what we talked about the other day as I gear up. So if you have a carry optic type system that you want to put on or gear up with, go ahead and do that now. I'm actually wearing one of my beautiful precision holsters rigs. I actually brought my signature fast holster to show off this morning. This is a fast holster. It's spelled PHAST. If you haven't heard about it, go to precisionholsters.com. This one is my signature line. So I'll hold that up in the light. That blue stars and stripes pattern is what we came up with. When they said, hey, Mike, we wanted to do a signature line, we did blue initially because blue is my favorite color. And we looked at a bunch of different options. And finally, he's like, well, how about the flags? We did this red, white, and blue motif. You can kind of see even in the screw colors there with the red and the blue and, of course, the stars and stripes. So I love it. Anyways, you can check out the Seeklander signature line if you want that color. If you want to get pink or orange or blue, they have all kinds of different colors for precisionholsters.com. Okay, so in last week's show, we talked a little bit about finding your dot. So in terms of your optic itself, I talked a lot about gun position, right? And I actually did a carry optics fundamentals class for the first time. We talked a lot about gun position, gun angles, and how to truly find your dot. So one of the first things that we did was we turned our optics on, right, and found our dot. And I would like you to consider doing this if you have a carry optic today. And by the way, if you're an iron-sighted shooter, this is still a good live stream for you because we're talking about transitions here in a second. And I think transitions are really important. You know, for those of you that are doing competitive shooting, transitions for a defensive shooter, maybe not quite as applicable in the same context, but we can talk about that. But if you're an iron-sighted shooter, we're going to talk about that as well. So, but with the optic, I want you to consider finding the dot in the center of the optic window. So when I talk about the optic window, I'm talking about the actual window of the optic itself, right? So I would like you to find that dot in the center of the window. There's the dot. I can almost get it. There's kind of it. It's really hard to do this, by the way. So I'm going to find the dot in the center of the window, and I'm going to aim directly where I want to hit. So I have a target over there, and I've got a little thumbtack set up. So I'm going to aim the gun right at that thumbtack, right? So then I'm going to start practicing coming just slightly off target and unbuilding my grip and rebuilding it. So this is learned position number one. So I'm rebuilding my grip. Now notice when I'm moving the gun, I'm generally speaking keeping it at this angle. So once I've indexed the gun and finalized my grip, the sooner I can get the gun close to this angle, the better I'm going to find the dot. Now, There's some folks out there that tend to bring the muzzle slightly up and have the dot come down in the middle of the window. I'm not opposed to that if you're learning the dot initially, but be careful we don't waste a lot of time doing this, right? I've seen shooters that come up and do this. That's never going to be fast. So this position eventually is a learned position. And I'm going to give you a little secret on finding the dot, and then we'll start talking about the draw process and transitions. When you're trying to find the dot fast, get the target in the window, right? So what I'm doing is, if this is the target, and this is the A zone or the 0 zone in the target, I'm getting that. I'm going to center the 0 zone or the A zone in the window of the optic. So I get the target in the window, and then I find the dot. So get the target in the window at that angle, you'll find your dot. So I'm looking for the target in the window of the optic, and then I will find the dot. So when you're doing this, it's a learned position. So I'm building my grip, find the dot. Build my grip, find my dot. You know, that's not even technically a dry fire drill if you think about it. It's simply a presentation drill. Now, if you want to work this skill a little bit, if you watch my trigger finger when I slow it down, I may work on touching the trigger there, right? When I'm building my grip, touching the trigger. So every time I'm building that grip, I'm touching the trigger. And notice, I'll give you a key point here, a key tip for you on there on the live streaming. By the way, we're live on IDPA, Shooting Performance, and the YouTube. Hello, YouTube, if you're watching me right now, or later on if you're watching on YouTube. If you found me on YouTube, send an email if you have time to help@shooting- it's like a hyphen, performance.com. I'd love to hear from you and say, Mike, I saw you on YouTube. Anyways, so when I'm doing this, I am always rotating off of this index point under the trigger guard. For me, I call this the Judy chop. It's the trigger guard index point. This is a key point. So when I'm building the grip on an iron-sighted gun or an optic-sighted gun, I'm always rotating off this point. Notice how my hand is maintaining contact with the grip. I'm not doing this necessarily. As much as possible, I want to keep both hands in contact with the handgun. The only exception, of course, is that long movement where we start to run and swing our arms, and then we re-index under the trigger and build our grip. But in terms of finding your dot, consider literally building the position. I'll give you another angle here. Build in the position, memorize that position, right? Gun planed out, gun moving this direction. Because keep in mind, to find the dot, if we have the angle off just a little bit, you will not find your dot in your optic, okay? Let's see who we have on this morning. Hey, Jason Hunt. Is it Jason? Is that the right pronunciation? Your shoot carry optics is Tennessee IDPA State Championship. We'll kick some butt there, man. Nice. Good job. Jason Brown is going to be there as well. Good luck to Jason Brown. Tina? Yes, sir. And Tina, you should absolutely take one of Tim Herron's classes. He's pretty darn good from what I've heard as an instructor. Hey, Jason Brown, number 15. Scott, good morning, Scott. Late to the party as usual. That's okay. Teresa, good morning. How are you? Cyprian Mihai from Romania. Holy moly, Cyprian, good morning. That's an interesting name. Nice to have you. Donald Moffat, good morning. Berryville, Arkansas, man. Berryville, Donald, are you a Wilson Combat person? If you are, good morning. And Tim, I can't wait to see you too next month. I just hope you're not practicing very much because you're hard to beat. I don't like that. That bothers me a lot. David Yavchak, that's an interesting name as well. So you're welcome for the help on the grip. Okay. All right, Johnny. Hey, nice to have you on as well. Johnny, is it Chacon? Man, a lot of interesting names this morning. So forgive me if I'm not pronouncing them right. And someone asked me, isn't it more easy to get the dot by tracking the front sight while pressing the gun out instead of drive it out, pull it out? So in terms of your question about the front sight, and I don't know your name because that's a very interesting writing, and I can't read that. So the question on the finding the dot, is it easier to find the dot off the front sight if you have a tall front sight in your optic? It is to an extent, but here's the deal. Remember, when we're working with a carry optic, the whole advantage of an optic is to look at the single focal plane distance. So it's a single focal plane system, right? If you don't know that, a carry optic or an optic on a handgun is a single focal plane system, which means that focal plane is at the target distance. So if I'm doing things like, for example, coming back to my front sight to find the dot, I'm in essence defeating the purpose of the single focal plane system and the dot itself. And in essence, I'm going to be slower. So for me, I want to find this learned position. If I can get the dot in the center of the window right now, that's my learned position. I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. And if I come off target just slightly and can repeat that, okay, I know what that feels like. I know exactly where the dot is going to come in the window. For me, it might come from the top of the window, just slightly. Matter of fact, the top left corner as I'm building the grip. But once I learn this angle, matter of fact, working with an optic, a carry optic will actually increase your gun stopping position skill, or your presentation skill, because you have to be so precise with a dot. With iron sights, we see the sights in our vision the entire time. With an optic, you don't see the iron sights. And I'm not opposed to using the iron sights a little bit to get you the dot. I'm not opposed to bringing the muzzle of the guns just slightly up. But remember, we're trying to develop speed here. If you're going to compete with an optic, what I would not want you to do is draw the handgun and go like this. Take all that. That's a quarter of a second. I need to drive the gun out there, find the dot right there, right? So I'm going to present the handgun, get the target in the window, find the dot. Get the target in the window, find the dot. Jeffrey, what's your taking off the iron sights? I don't have a problem. And by the way, a CCW from Pakistan. Good morning from Pakistan. Nice to have you on. That's awesome. I don't have a problem with iron sights. I don't know if I would recommend taking the iron sights off of your carry optic handgun, even for competition purposes. And I'll tell you why. I can't really utilize this front sight because it's not tall enough, but I will put a taller front sight on this handgun before I compete with it. The advantage there is, and I don't need the rear sight as much, but I would love to have a system that I can utilize if I lose the dot, and it might guide you into position. Now, I would not want such a tall front sight. For example, if you look at the difference between this one, this has true backup iron sights, right? And if you look at where the backup iron sights are co-witness, I'm not sure if I can show the dot to the camera here. The backup iron sights are in a position where the dot sits right on top of them, but they occlude some of the window. So for a competition handgun, I don't know if I would want this much iron sight stuff in the vision of the window. I want the window just a little bit clear. Now, this is going to be a carry gun. This is my new SFX90 carry gun, so that's why I have that set up like that. Now, with the competition gun, I don't have a problem with having some iron sights, or at least having something you could utilize as a backup aiming system if you lose your dot. So yeah, not a problem at all. I do have a couple of carry optics gun on my 1911s where I don't have iron sights. And if the optic fails, I've practiced aiming just through the window of the optic itself and being able to get shots. But if they're hard shots, it's going to be a hope and a prayer trying to finish the stage. Okay. All right. So Jeremy asked, what dot size, 3 or 6? So here's what I've found for most purposes. Bigger and brighter is probably going to be better. This one, the original, I think Delta Point Leopold Delta Point Pro, I think it's 2.5 actually. I have a bunch of those, and then I just ordered the 6 MOA dot, the newer ones, and I was completely sold on a bigger dot. You know, on this particular optic, on the Holson variants, we talked about this a little on the live stream, so go back to that. I have the full reticle pattern turned on, so you can turn the circle on, the circle and the dot. It actually looks like this, right? I have the circle and the dot turned on, so it's just bigger, brighter, and more robust. Okay. So good questions, folks. If you have questions, throw them up there and I will answer them. But I want to talk a little bit about draw size. And then, draw speed and draw tips, draw size. I'm thinking about dots. Draw speed. I want to talk a little bit about draw speed and the draw process. And then we're going to talk about transitions. And then we'll do some Q&A because this will probably finalize my carry optics, finding the dot live streams. I'll probably move on to something else next week. Okay. So just a couple tips on draw speed. Right, and let me give you a little bit more of a camera angle down, folks. There we go. Fix my camera. Hey, by the way, good morning. Anybody new on here? IDPA, thank you. That's Chris Sharon, by the way. Parrish, Florida. Chris Berry, nice to have you on. John Bennett, good morning. Hey, George Petra from Greece. I love that place. I love Greece. Very, very nice. Oh, Donald, Wilson, and Nighthawk. Nice. Okay, cool. Nice to have you on as well. Kip, good morning. Kip S. No, good morning. How are you as well? All right, folks, we have 102 people. I haven't said this but one time. Do me a favor. Click share. Go to Facebook, click share. Find a group. Share this on my Training Addicts group or maybe the Wilson Combat group, or share it to the Black Rifle Coffee group. I'm drinking coffee. It's not Black Rifle coffee. If they would send me some, I would drink it, maybe. That's some good stuff. Okay, do me a favor, click share, and we're going to rock and roll and talk about the draw process. So in terms of the draw process, I'm going to give you a few tips. Number one, with both hands, I move them at the same time. So generally speaking, when I say when one hand moves, they both move. Now, there's some variations to that. So there's some other top shooters that don't move their hands quite similar to me, but I have to keep things simple. And what I'm going to show you right now will probably work for most of you. So when I'm drawing the handgun, wherever my hands are, whether my hands are relaxed at my sides, or my hands are maybe up on the X's on a wall, or maybe my hands are holding a prop or whatever else, no matter what, my hands will always move at the same time and same speed, okay? Now, draw tip number one, when you're grabbing the handgun in the holster, I want you to attack the handgun from the rear. So when I'm indexing the handgun in the holster, I'm making contact with the inside part of my hand and the web of my hand, and I'm attacking it from the rear. And then I'm driving my hand up the back strap of the handgun. The direction I'm moving my hand is this. I'm not grabbing the handgun from the top, because if I grab the handgun from the top, maybe I'll hit this part of the tang of the firearm, maybe I'll hit here, I'll have an improper grip. If I attack it from the rear like this, I will always drive my hand nice and high up the back strap of the handgun. And don't forget your key indicators. If you have a perfect high grip, you should feel pressure between the middle finger here and the trigger guard, and you should feel pressure between the tang of the firearm and the web of your hand. So that would be indicative of a nice high grip. So when one hand moves, they both move, okay? The second hand is going to go center line of my body. So for me, my four fingers are going to be together, because you'll see when I grab the handgun out of the holster and it drives by, right here, I'm going to start to index into the trigger guard. This is a specific angle, by the way. I want you to see this angle. Pay attention to the angle. It's this angle. This angle. Look at my hands, please. Not this. I'm not doing this. Because when I put my hands together like this, they slip and they slide. When I put my hand together like this, it chops and it stops. I want to chop and stop versus slip and slide. That's actually a pretty good tip, right? Because if I index that spot, if I know where to touch that index finger, then I can rotate my hand into the grip, okay? And then, of course, the last position of the draw process is index point number 3, where these two corners of these thumbs come together. And I can feel that. I can also feel my support hand nice and high on the handgun grip. So if I take one hand off the handgun and I show you the thumb position, my thumb position is just right below this slide frame line. Now, I am not, remember this is another key tip for you, I am absolutely positively not doing this. I'm not trying to rotate my hand forward. Matter of fact, that's one of the single biggest problems I see with shooters these days, is they take that support hand thumb and they try to rotate it forward to point the thumb at the target, because someone told them you have to line the thumb up with this wrist to lock it up. You don't have to do that. But what you do by rotating the thumb forward, right, key tip for you, is you take the palm of your hand and you pull it away from the back strap of the gun. So if I take the palm of my hand, my left hand, and pull it away from the back area of the gun, I can no longer clamp the back area of the gun. And if you think about this, the gun recoils and recovers like this. So if I take my palm away and I no longer have the ability to clamp, okay, this is my counter rotation. I've never shown this like this on video. At least I don't think I have. Like this, this, this. You see that? Okay. Now I know my right hand is in the way. I'm not getting my support hand completely on the back of the gun, but that's the direction I'm pushing my hands. But if I rotate my left hand forward like this, watch what it does to the palm of my hand. It rotates that palm of my hand away from the back of the gun, so I can no longer clamp the back of the gun. If I can't clamp the back of the gun, I can't increase pressure on the back of the gun. Boom, which means I can't control the recoil as well. Think about that for a second. Think about that, okay? So when my support hand comes into position, it's a very specific angle. So once again, as a refresher for the draw process, my strong hand attacks the gun from the rear. My support hand sets itself up for success. Gun drives by. Here it goes. Shot into the trigger guard. And then from there, I continue to build my grip. Both palms are pressing together. Now my grip pressure is increasing. And I try to keep the gun moving at this angle. This. Look at the angle, right? Get closer to the camera. This angle, right? Not this. Not this. Not this. Not this. Of course, those are all kind of stupid angles, right? This is my angle. When I present the handgun directly there, and by the way, you can see I am left eye dominant. I'm bringing the gun to my head. I'm not bringing the head down to the gun, okay? Hey, we have 148 people on, which means we're about to hit 150, which is awesome, by the way. Hey, someone shared this sucker a bunch. We got a bunch of likes and Facebook. Wait a second, we had a Facebook sad. Scott Loomis did a Facebook sad. Why is that? We got a bunch of Facebook happies, though. That's nice. All right. Hey, I have a few questions. Let me answer some questions, then we'll talk more about the drop. Brian, thank you for your comment. And it looks like Tina, thank you for your comment as well. Donald Moffat, do you pin the grip safety on your competition 1911s? I do not. Absolutely not, Donald. First of all, Donald Moffat asked, do I pin the grip safety? And I don't have my original 1911s here. Do I pin the grip safety? No, I want all active safeties on the firearm. As a matter of fact, in IDPA rules, you have to have all safeties that were built on the firearm active. You can't deactivate a safety in IDPA rules, if I remember that correctly. And I'll tell you, I learned that lesson the hard way because I had a gunsmith that had deactivated either the firing pin block or the grip safety on a 1911 that he had built for me or fixed up for me for the IDPA Nationals many years ago. And lo and behold, I got DQ'd because of that. So no, I do not deactivate. On my USPSA limited guns, on my USPSA single set guns, I do not deactivate the grip safety. I want as many safeties as active as possible on the gun. And of course, then I work, a lot on building the proper grip. I don't have a problem deactivating the grip safety. This gun doesn't have a grip safety. This is the SF, man, learn to talk, Seeklander. The SF series of the X9, which means solid frame. But if it did have a grip safety, you might see what we call a memory bump or a memory groove. I think they call it grip safety, which adds a little material to the grip safety itself. So it allows the web or the palm of your hand to depress the grip safety a little bit easier, right? And there's some other things you can do to modify the grip safety. If you have a Wilson Combat or whatever else, we can talk about that later on. Okay. Good question. So, Ronald, how do you correct your bad habits? So good question, Ronald. Here's the deal for Ronald and all of you that are watching. Looks like Teddy just joined us. Well, good morning, Teddy. You can't fix a bad habit necessarily, meaning you can't take the bad habit and hit delete on the keyboard. In order to fix a problem that you've repetitively built a habit from doing repetitions, doing something over and over again, the only way to fix that is to program something correct. So, Teddy is questions. He brings his head down. So here's where you got to start, Teddy. Step number 1, keep the head in the same position. Bring the gun to the eyes, right? Okay. Bring the gun to the eyes. Okay. Bring the gun to the eyes. Okay. Bring the gun to the eyes. Okay. Every time, right? Bring the gun to the eyes. Bring the gun to the eyes. Bring the gun to the eyes. Over and over and over and over. And then add the draw process. Bring the gun to the eyes, right? Right? Don't bring the head down. Bring the gun to the eyes. And make sure you're feeling what you're doing. Go through the process. And I hate to say it, the magic answer is repetition. You built the habit. You myelinated that nerve pathway. You built that process with repetitions. The only way to fix it is with repetitions, but they're correct repetitions. So hear this tip one more time. If you have a bad habit, present the gun to the wrong position. Move the gun when you fire it. Any bad habit, anything that's not proper in terms of shooting that's causing you to be slower or less accurate, you can't unbuild that habit. The only way to do it is if you did repetitions that built that bad habit, is to now do correct repetitions to build a better habit or the best habit. A correct habit maybe is the term. And if you did 500 repetitions to build a bad habit, you probably have to do 500 repetitions to build a good habit or more. And then the brain defaults and starts to select that program versus the other program. But the bad news is you can't unbuild that habit. By the way, we have a bunch of people jumping on. Good morning, Dewey. Thank you for jumping on. Okay, so let's talk about transitions real quick. I talked about the draw process. As a reminder, when one hand moves, they both move. One hand attacks the gun from the rear. I index under the trigger guard, build the draw, and I'm still ending up in the same presentation with the carry optic. So let's talk about the transition process of moving your head and your gun and your eyes from target to target. Keep in mind, one more thing for you, another tip. If you're a competitor, there's only 3 things you can do faster, right? You can learn to shoot the gun faster, you can learn to move the gun faster, and you can learn to move your body faster and be ready to shoot when you get to the next position. That's all you can actually do faster. Shoot faster, move the gun faster and move your body faster and be ready to shoot when you get the next position. So when we're talking about moving the gun faster, we're talking about transitions. The first thing that I want you to consider, if you're doing this with me, is I want you to take your feet and I want you to step them outside of your shoulders and think about the foot position. Okay, that is the foot position I want you to try. One more thing you could do is you can actually take your feet. Let's do this wrong for a second. Now put your feet inside your shoulders. So I'm looking down my shoulder, my foot's inside my shoulder, my other foot's. So I've got a very narrow stance. Then take your hands, and you can actually take your hands with your handgun in it and wind it, let's say maybe 45 or so degrees to the right or left, right? So I'm going to go way over here. So now I'm going to take the gun and I'm going to drive it way over here as hard as I can. So then take your handgun and drive it over there and try to stop the gun. Now do the opposite pattern. Drive the opposite way and try to stop the gun. It's going to be hard to stop the gun. Now take your feet, step them outside of your shoulders. Look down. Now my feet are wider than my shoulders. Now put the weight of the balls to your feet. Now take your handgun, aim it in the same position. Now this time when I say go, I want you to push off your left foot and then stop the gun. Ready? Go. Stop the gun. This time when you go to the opposite direction, I want you to push off your right foot. Ready? Go. Drive with your right foot. And you'll feel that you can drive and stop the gun much faster. Okay? And that's the key. So key point number one, in transition speed, get the feet wide and aggressive. I want your feet outside of your shoulders. Okay? Outside of the shoulders. Number two, you have to look where you want the gun to go. So when I say that, when I say you have to look where you want the gun to stop, I want to look at a specific spot that I want to stop the gun. But be very careful, because when I say that, oftentimes we see it taught wrong and maybe ingrained wrong. So we see people that go, okay, eyes, muzzle, trigger. I need to look and then drive the gun over here. I need to look, drive the gun over here. In reality, we don't do that in a transition. So there's a spot over here on the wall. I'm going to look at that spot on the wall. But after I finish firing the shot over here, I'm going to look as quickly as I can, but I'm also going to drive the gun. Boom, boom. Notice when I did that, I fired the shot. So I'm going to drive the gun over here in this case. I'm going to go boom, boom. So I'm looking, boom, boom, but I'm driving the gun very, very fast. Boom, boom. Now when you do this, here, pay attention to this. This is interesting. Pay attention to my whole body and my head. So I'm going to fire a shot there. I'm going to fire a shot there. Watch my body. Boom, boom. You probably saw me do this. Wham! My body's moving because I'm taking my whole lower body and I'm driving the gun with my whole body. I actually end up lower than I started. It's such an aggressive motion. And when you work your transitions, you should work short transition, boom, boom, right? So I'm going boom, 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 right? Boom, 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 boom. Now, when I'm doing a short transition, let's define transitions. If you're doing a short transition and you're shooting at a target and you have the next target in your periphery, there's not a big visual flow from coming off the dot, right? You're looking at the target, but I'm coming off the awareness of the dot, right? Or off the front sight and moving my eyes because it's such a short movement. I'm boom, boom. I can see it in my periphery, right here. If I aim at the camera, and there's a target right there. So if I'm aiming at the camera right now, I could already see the target. So I could fire this shot, boom, boom, and I could shoot that target right there. So I could see the camera in my periphery right now, boom, boom. Does that make sense? Boom, boom, right? I always want to look where I'm driving the gun though. So I have two targets with thumbtack set up. So if I work transitions, I'll fire, boom, fire on the thumbtack, right? Boom, boom. Notice when I'm doing this, I'm driving the gun very fast. So boom, 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 boom. This is a very aggressive motion. Boom, 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 boom. And then you probably want to work angles, right? So I may go high, low, right? Low, high, low, high, high, low, right? Directly across. So you can work all those angles. So you could just literally take a bunch of little, Post-it notes like this and put them on the wall, right? Or literally just buy yourself some little blue or black thumbtacks and put them everywhere on the wall themselves and practice driving the gun all over the place. Man, I'm kind of winded from that hard work. Good morning. Looks like I have some questions. Let me see what I have here. Good morning, Dewey. Thank you for saying that. Teddy from the Philippines. Nice. Hey, Bob Margolis. How are you, sir? Good. Nice to see you on, sir. And Oh, Donald, okay, you pin your grip safety. Hey, there's some folks that pin the grip safeties. I'm not a fan of deactivate the safety. Be careful with the rules, though, too, okay? Ronald, you're welcome. 3-1 is what I've read, Mike. Train correct when possible, get good information possible, spend the time you must retrieve bad hands in the most optimal way possible. Ricky, I totally agree with that, right? Can you shoot the Nighthawk, Firehawk, and IDPA? I don't know, Donald. You have to check the rule book. If it's compensated, probably not, right? Connor Garrett, good morning. Got home late when you were finished up on your grip demo. Are you able to touch the support side hand angle again quickly? Yes. So here's the deal, Connor. My point there and let me put this. Let's do a grip tip. So when I'm talking about building the grip on the handgun, I want to have both hands in contact with as much of the grip surface as possible. That's number one. Number two, I want to have both hands as high as possible. So if you look at my support hand thumb is just below the slide frame line. It's nice and high. It's not down here. No good? Good. No good? Good. But conversely, and I think Connor's asking this question, if I take that same hand, that support hand, and now I rotate my hand forward to try to point the thumb at the target falsely, or to reach up and touch some spot on the slide, which I had a student in this last class doing that. He was like, I'm trying to ride a spot in my slide with this thumb. This little guy, and my thumb is actually smaller. This guy doesn't do anything to control the recoil. What controls the recoil are your hands, your fingers, your grip, your palm, all the contact of the grip itself. So if I take that support hand and I rotate it forward, now I've taken that support hand away from its ability to clamp the back of the gun. I don't want it there, right? I want it here. So now I can take that support hand and I can pressure to an extent the back of the gun. When I say the back of the gun, right, you can see underneath my handgun. Granted, my strong hand, my right hand, is mostly on the back of the gun. I know my support hand isn't completely, but when I grip the handgun, notice how they drive in and clamp. I'm pressing the grips, palms together on the back of the gun. These three fingers are just hooking the grip, right? I don't think I've ever shown this on this camera angle. It's actually kind of cool. So that's where my hands are. I know my right hand is mostly on the back of the gun, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to apply pressure with both hands on the back of the gun. Do not rotate your support hand forward for some lining up of the thumb or whatever you hear on the internet. I don't believe that. I don't believe that's a quality way of saying it. Because you take the palm of your hand and move it to the wrong position. Then I have shooters and they fire and they go boom, 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 boom. And they can't figure out while the gun is rotating or recoiling out of their support hand. That's why. So Connor, hopefully that answers your question, okay? Let's see what else we have here. Good morning, Jesse. How are you? Ricky from Michigan. Nice to have you. First shift your eyes, then shift your sights. So good question. Pakistan, I think. Pakistan, still here. When we're talking about movement, I'm always looking where I want to stop the gun. But just realize that when we do a true transition, I'll thank my buddy Rob Latham for helping me explore this and pointing this out, because the concept of eyes, muzzle, trigger is the eyes move first, we drive the gun, right, and then we prep the trigger as we're coming into the leading edge of the target. But in reality, I don't, if I were to shoot these two targets, I would go, boom, 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 right? Boom, 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 boom. So I'm looking as aggressive as I can. Boom, 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 boom. But the gun is moving there too. Boom, 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 boom. And by the way, before I forget to mention it, you've got to practice your body angles too, because our transitions are not all just upright transitions. We may have to come into a position where we're stepping on a fault line and we fire a couple of targets, boom, then we rotate our body over. So when I'm working my transitions, I will work off balance transitions as well. Boom, 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 right? Boom, 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 right? Boom, 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 boom. Notice how I'm looking and driving the gun. Can you all tell on camera how aggressive that is? It's a super aggressive move. I'm driving the gun fast. All right. Akeen, should my support hand thumb be touching with initial contact in the draw? So, Akeen, I'm not sure where you're talking about touching, but my support hand indexes and touches here. You might, Akeen, be saying, should your support hand thumb be touching here? I don't know. Maybe it's not right or wrong, but I don't care about what this thumb does. A lot of my students are like, well, Mike, where do you rest your thumb? I don't care about this thumb. I'll give you another tip. If I'm clamping and pushing my palms together like this, watch what this thumb does. See how it just kind of float out away from the gun? If I'm clamping my hands like this, my thumb just kind of floats and points forward. If I'm trying to push my thumb against something, that automatically pulls the palm of my hand away from the back of the gun. I don't want to pull the palm of my hand away from the back of the gun. So I'm not really concerned with this thumb, what it does. It does not control recoil. This thumb, it's just kind of there. If I were shooting a 1911 system, it's riding the safety. It's always, always, always on top of the safety. Okay, so that's a good question. So hopefully, Akin, yeah, so your thumb probably doesn't touch a key in the gun. If you have the Judy chop in the right spot, and you may have very long fingers, I don't remember, but probably not going to touch. And I'm not worried about the thumb. I'm really, really, really concerned with this index point and then driving the palm, the thumb muscle here, and grip into the handgun grip as effectively as possible. All right. What do we have here? Where are your schools? Donald, my schools I'm assuming you're talking about my classes. Go to shooting-performance.com. By the way, I should have said that at the front end. Maybe I'll say that now. Anything you're interested in, for those of you that are on, for the 109 people or all those folks watching on YouTube, just go to MikeSeeklander.com. You can learn all about all of the various programs I offer, where I teach classes, and how you jump into a class as well. And a lot of this material, I give this away for free because it's live, it's interactive. I enjoy this. I have 112 people on right now. We almost had 150 on. I've had, old school DDC followers. For those of you that don't know what the DDC stands for, that was the Daily Dry Fire Challenge, which is kind of cool because back in the day, we used to get together and do repetitions. These tend to be more instructional, but go to MikeSeeklander.com. That'll redirect you and you can find everything out you would want to know about me. I do strongly recommend, if you're not a member, to check out the membership areas. I just can't tell you how rich and robust. I'm not trying to get all salesy on here, but I tell you they are rich and they're robust and full of actual step-by-step programs. And I don't know of anybody out there that offers training programs. I know of a couple of top shooters that offer training videos and video dense areas where they got a lot of videos, which is fine. That's great if you want that. But my programs are literally session by session, follow along programs. For example, the original USPSA program, which I am starting to follow, I'm going to go through that sucker and maybe post it on Instagram, is a 3-phase program. It's a 3-phase session by session program with static skills, dynamic skills, and specialty skills training sessions each week. So it's actually pretty darn cool. Okay. Keen misses those as well. Yeah, Keen used to be back with the original DDC a long time ago. All right, folks, let me see if I have any other questions. Good question. So Ricky, great question from Ricky Roberts. To the transition, are you moving the same rate throughout? Constant acceleration, deceleration. So Ricky, I have to accelerate the gun as quickly as possible, but I also have to decelerate the gun as quickly as possible. So when you're practicing, I think that the best way for me to answer that is the best way for you to learn the transition process is set the feet up wide and aggressive, right? And then just practice driving the gun. Like literally start. I'm aiming at a thumbtack, and what I'll do is I'll dry fire a shot. Then I'm going to do a transition to the left. So I'm going to dry fire and call good shot. Then I'm going to transition to the other pin. So I'm going to start here with the prep trigger. I'm going to fire shot, boom, and I'm stopping the gun. And you're going to start to feel exactly what your lower body needs to do. You're going to feel if you're driving the gun into position too hard and it's twanging, but that's not a problem. Oftentimes, I'm very aggressive on the transition. I don't find the gun going twangy if my lower body is set up properly. So there's your key tip for the transition. If your lower body is set up so you can athletically drive the gun, you probably won't have a problem stopping the gun. But it's a physically athletic drive of the gun itself. I'm moving it as fast as I can. So the speed is the same. I'm driving it as hard as I can initially. That will be my acceleration. And then there's deceleration literally right before the gun stops. By the way, in terms of trigger, what am I doing on the trigger? So if I were to fire a shot, and I'm not going to go click, I'm going to leave it unclicked. When I drive the gun over here, right, and I see what's going on, as the gun enters the leading edge of the target, I'll be prepping the trigger. So as the gun enters, right, this is the gun, the leading edge of the target, I'm prepping the trigger here. So by the time the gun stops, I fully prep the trigger and I can fire that shot. Okay, so prep the trigger as you enter the leading edge of the target, not before, especially in a wide or medium swing. I would not want to prep the trigger too early, because if I go boom, boom, and accidentally prep the trigger and fire a shot, you probably won't get DQ'd if it's a wide open area because you're meaning to fire the shot soon. You just fired at a bad timing, but you might have an SO or RO that DQs you. And it's not going to do any good for your score. It's going to throw you off. Okay. All right. Donald, what caliber? I shoot whatever caliber is necessary in the division I'm competing with. So it completely varies. Look up the sport of IDPA and USPSA, Donald, and you can see the different divisions. And for example, the single stack USPSA Nationals coming up pretty soon. I'll be shooting major, so I'll be shooting 40, more than likely 40 or 45. Of course, ESP later on in the year, when I'm competing at the Wilson Combat Rocky Mountain Regional, I'll be shooting ESP more than likely, where I'm shooting the same single stack type frame or variety, but I'm shooting a 9mm. Okay. All right, so I don't see anything else in terms of questions, folks. And Jesse, thank you. I hope you're doing well as well. So anyways, folks, thank you so much for jumping on Shoot Performance IDPA and the YouTube if you're watching me there. Don't forget, you can get your questions answered by reaching out to me, as well as going to my website. We'll see those, post those links later on, MikeSeeklander.com. If you're interested, go there. If you're on the Instagram, give me a follow. A lot of these videos I'll cut up into short tips, and I'm posting a bunch of tips that I film on the range. They seem to be very popular from what I've been told. People really like them, and I'm getting great feedback on the Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, give me a follow. Go to Instagram right now. Find me. It's Mike Seeklander, I think. I don't think it's a tricky name. I used to call my web Instagram page Shooting Performance, but it's just Mike.Seeklander now. It's my name, right? Why use anything but my name? So that's all I have. We talked about a few things. We talked about gun position in terms of the optic, finding the dot better. Find the target in the window, find the dot, right? Find the target in the window, find the dot. And you could do it from just short presentations like that. We talked about the draw. When one hand moves, they both move. Attack the gun from the rear with your strong hand. Put your support hand somewhere center line, fingers together. So when the gun comes out of the holster, you can index. We talked about the critical importance of the angle of this index point under the trigger guard. And then we talked about the full grip loading process, getting both palms in place and clamping and driving the gun, driving the palms to the back of the gun. We talked about transitions, where we're talking about, the eyes looking where we want to stop the gun, but the gun moving very, very fast as well, and not doing these singular separatist motions that in the end you won't do in a match or whatever else. So learn to drive the gun hard and aggressive by looking where you want the gun to stop, and then driving the gun as fast as you can. And of course, that starts from the ground. It starts in your feet. So you got to have your feet in the right spot. And if you have your feet in the right spot, everything else will fall into place. So we had about 149, 150 on. I'm not sure IDP how many we had on today. So that's kind of good. If the Thursday mornings are not great for you, let us know. Type a comment in. But if you like the Thursday mornings, let me know, because I may stick to Thursday mornings for a while. So maybe next time we'll actually break 150. Like I said, I think the throttle on Facebook is probably off just a little bit. Stay safe, folks. Have a great day. Thanks for joining me on the live stream. Next week on Thursday morning, I believe we're going to be rocking and rolling with another one. I'll post the event in the section. Look at the Facebook page. Put it in your calendar. Maybe send a text to a shooting buddy and say, hey, check these out. They're free. They're pretty informative. And I really try to take care of the viewers and answer your questions. So that's all I have. And Chris says you like Thursday morning. Great. Have a great day, Tina. Nice. And the other Tina as well, Tina Navalli. You're welcome. All right, folks, stay safe. And until then, train hard.